far of Cold War Zombies, but it's not just any old storyline recap. This one's actually being assisted a little bit by Treyarch themselves. So without further ado, we're going to jump into it, and Craig Houston's going to take it away. Here we go. Wait for it. There we go. Okay, we're in. Yes. This is the new map.
Hi everyone, I'm Craig Houston. I'm the lead writer at Treyarch.
Hi.
As we prepare to move into Season 6 and the finale of the Black Ops Cold War Zombies story,
Just real quick, in case you're wondering, yes, the audio of this is a little, like the audio balance, a little sketchy. He's a little quiet. I can't fix that. That's just how the video is. So sorry, folks.
thought it might be nice to take a little look back at where we've come from and learn how we got to where we are.
Absolutely. There's Samantha.
When we kicked off the Dark Ether story with the launch of Black Ops Cold War, our initial map, Die Maschine, was really the one that showed how this story had come to be. It delved into Nazi experiments from the end of World War II, where they hoped to turn the tide of the war by harnessing the powers of a cyclotron.
Commencing cyclotron test run number 12.
Wow.
Dr. Kurtz, please proceed.
I didn't expect them to do radios like in here like this. That's actually really interesting. They're threading intel through this little recap and just doing like very kind of like eerie shots of rooms and buildings and different parts of the map. Like that's a pretty interesting way of presenting this. Treyarch, the next best thing, or sorry, the next level of this, if they wanted to step their game up even more, would be to animate some of those radios. That would be so damn cool. Wouldn't it be cool? I would love that. Like, it will never happen because it would be loads of work for no reason, but I would love that.
Unfortunately for them, what they actually succeeded in doing was ripping a hole into a dimension known as the Dark Ether.
Right.
Got the balance!
Not good. Not
When the
good.
Red Army discovered what the Nazis had been doing with the particle accelerator, they took steps to try and seal the rift. And that meant someone had to be volunteered to go inside and seal it up.
And who was that, chat? Let's get a pop quiz going in the chat, in the comments. Who was that? Who was it that volunteered or was volunteered? Like, they didn't actually volunteer. They were volunteered. Who was it that went in to seal the portal? Leave a comment.
From the inside.
How can I be of service, Comrade Lazarev?
There is a machine I need you to deactivate. Understood?
Da. Congratulations, товарищ. You're going to be a hero of the Soviet Union.
As players explored Die Maschine, they were introduced to a new cast of characters who would be guiding them, specifically the Requiem team,
Right.
led by Gregory Weaver and assisted by Major Carver, Dr. Strauss, and Dr. Gray.
Yeah.
As time progressed, we also learned a lot more about our bitter rivals, a Soviet-led unit known as Omega Group. As time went on, we would learn more about their hierarchy too, most notably a familiar face from Black Ops 1, Kravchenko.
So that's all kind of like basic building blocks so far, right? There's mostly building blocks there so far. However, what's interesting is I think in this last map, there's going to be a little bit of stuff threaded in, which is like, are Requiem actually the good guys, right? I'm sure we'll get to this as well with the director later in this video, but he says like, yeah, it's us and who we're pitted against. And he says like, we're pitted against them. But despite that, like, I don't feel that closely allied to Requiem. Just because, like, yeah, they're the Western side, they're like American side or whatever. It still, to me, is like, I'm not sure. I think Samantha's position, where she's kind of like a party in the middle, kind of, is more where it would be better to stand. But yeah, it's an interesting little point, that.
We'd seen in Die Maschine, Samantha Maxis was determined to stay in the field and continue her own investigations.
She was.
You have to turn yourself in. The CIA can protect you. I can protect you.
I can't do that, Weaver. The Omega Group have plans for the outbreak zones.
And this is something that led us on to our next map, which was Firebase
Firebase
C.
Z, baby.
Requiem. Welcome to Vietnam.
That was a cool trailer.
As players progressed through the Firebase C map, they worked with Ravenov, a former Omega Group soldier who had decided that he couldn't stomach what they were doing and maybe perhaps seek out new allies.
Yes.
Amongst those allies was Agent Maxis herself.
I am not a traitor to my country. Omega are not who we are.
And it was his intel that led her to Firebase C, where, sadly, she ran afoul of another new character, Dr. Peck.
Dr. Peck.
Maxis is a poor little lost girl.
just real quick. Okay, that's a reference. Maxis is a poor little lost girl. That is a reference. But what I want to just mention quickly here is they've got the game here with no HUD. Treyarch, can we get that as an option in the settings? That would be so good for thumbnails. Like, this looks so good here. This looks so good. I would love to be able to just turn the HUD off at any time and experience what we're seeing. That would be so amazing for content and just in general, like the aesthetic. It looks awesome. So, please?
No one, least of all you, can bring her back.
Given her defiance and refusal to cooperate with Dr. Peck, he threw her into the dark ether.
No one is coming for you because no one cares about you. From dust you are, and to dust you will return.
Okay.
Don't know how long I've been waiting for an answer, but I am here, and I have been waiting for a long time.
Upon my...
So, I guess he's probably gonna talk about this in a moment, but just as a reminder, time works differently in the Dark Ether. I was saying that literally before the game even came out. And so Samantha's like, I don't know how long I've been here. I've been here for a long time, right? She's so sort of battle-scarred when she gets back. She's had so much experience in the Dark Ether, despite the fact that it's actually only been like a handful of days.
Maxis' return, Ravenov warned us that Omega Group were undertaking operations in the Ural Mountains, something that would become very important as the story progressed.
Indeed.
We were also introduced to Omega Group's leader, Kravchenko, who was not at all pleased with Peck's failure. Nor was another senior member of Omega staff, Valentina.
Hey.
So, as we took our operations to the Ural Mountains, we introduced a brand new mode for zombies, which was Outbreak.
Indeed.
The game kind of opened up in a way that isn't always possible with round-based maps. Narratively, Outbreak was a lot of fun because this was the first time really that Requiem had gone on the offensive. They undertook Operation Threshold, a series of experiments led by the different members of the Requiem cast.
That's actually quite an interesting way of putting that. The fact that we're going on the offensive there. It's like, kind of, in the zombies maps in the past, we've either been going to places to like do, like to like, I don't know, let's say, for instance, like going to like through the different maps in like a Black Ops 1 or something. You're like collecting things for this grand scheme, right? Stuff like that. It's quite interesting framing it as like, actually, we're just going on the offensive in a war here. Like I've not really thought about it in those terms too much, but that's pretty cool.
Their own specialities to understand the Dark Ether, understand the enemy, and to obviously gain an upper hand against Omega.
Yes,
Requiem
sir.
began to get more communications from Ravenov. Essentially, Ravenov and Maxis were going behind
What a
Weaver's
beast.
back. And this led us to a whole mission involving a Russian program called Operacja
Inversion.
As players moved through this mission, they discovered that the Omega Group had built something called the Reality Inversion Warheads.
This power is too dangerous for either Omega or Requiem to possess. So I say, we dump them in the middle of the Pacific.
Following the events of Operacja Inversia, players got the opportunity to undertake another main quest, this time Operation Excision.
And this being the prologue to Mal de Toten.
Been a long time, Weaver.
Ravenov, you've got some balls using the Slion after what you and Sam did.
Been contacted by a group of Omega scientists. They wish to defect.
Unfortunately, as we discovered at the end of that main quest, the whole thing was a trap, and the strike team were captured by Kravchenko and Omega.
So if you guys remember, the way that worked is that Jaeger was working with Kravchenko and basically gave the impression to the Requiem team that was all going to go to plan. They were going to just extract a load of scientists, and then, of course, they didn't extract any scientists. The scientists were all killed. That's what you get at the end of that cutscene of that second Outbreak Easter egg, and you get captured alongside your pilot as well.
To lure Requiem's so-called elite strike team into
There he
a
is.
trap. Fortunately, crushing helicopters is easy.
Requiem belongs to me now.
And there's Kravchenko.
After the players had worked with Ravenov and Maxis in Operacja Inversia, we learned that Maxis has got herself in a little bit of trouble, going behind Weaver's back, but perhaps more importantly, going behind the director's back.
Hey! Take your hands off me!
You're to undergo some additional testing.
Why are you doing this?
Orders from the director.
Maxis is to be taken to a secure facility known as Block 8, where she will undergo certain experiments.
Not for the first time, if you guys recall back to her childhood.
Following the disaster that was Operation Excision and the subsequent capture by Omega Group of the strike team, we moved to Toten. And this time we're going to be working under the command of Omega Group themselves.
I have work for them in Berlin. A certain member of our organization has gone to ground recently. I'm sure you've noticed their absence.
It's quite a cool transition.
I believe they are scheming against us.
Valentina has actually been seeking to enact a plan that is laying dormant from the end of World War II, which was to return a long-forgotten Nazi army who have essentially been housed in the Dark Ether for
decades. And what we don't have super clear optics on before the map is that this is completely under the nose of Kravchenko and Gorev and those other members of Omega Group. Like, they sort of are suspicious that something's going on. They see that there's some kind of scheme unfolding, but it's in the map itself where we're like, oh, okay, it's fully transparent now exactly how messed up all of this is. And part of that is tied to Valentina's true identity.
decades.
Someone had to free their army. My father chose
Wow,
me
that's a sick shot.
to lead that mission. No! It is not possible!
After defeating Valentina and her Nazi army, players escape with help from a rather unexpected source. A portal opens that allows them to teleport right back to Requiem HQ, and it...
Sorry, unexpected... 1 second, Craig. 1 sec...
Players escape with help from a rather unexpected source.
I don't know about that, buddy.
Portal opens that allows them to teleport right back to Requiem HQ, and it becomes clear that Samantha Maxis is growing in power.
Hell yeah. Love to see it. Julie.
Throughout Season 5's intel, we learn more of the experiments that she's undergone with the director.
You going to electrocute me again?
I really hope it doesn't come to that, but I know
That's the director, by the way, just in case you're not aware.
what you're capable of. I just want to see it for myself.
We learn more about exactly how the Dark Ether has changed her, and more about what that could potentially mean for the future and Season 6. We also learn more about an entity in the Dark Ether known as the Forsaken. Were this creature to make it into our world, it would probably mean the end of life as we know it. One of the things that we learned in Toten was that, in reality, Omega Group were actually building the reality inversion warheads to destroy the Forsaken. So that's something we kind of messed up. So now they've developed a new plan. They believe they can bring it into our world and perhaps harness its powers as the ultimate weapon.
So think about that, right? Like I was saying before about how Omega's not necessarily just the bad guys because they're Russian, right? If they're trying to destroy the Forsaken and we stop them, are we the bad guys?
The Forsaken? A solution is necessary. It must be dealt with.
Colonel, there has been a change of plan, Gorev. Peck and I are developing a new solution for the Forsaken. Rest assured, if it is successful, it will mean salvation for the Soviet Union. We will be heralded as heroes.
Amongst the many pieces of intel that we found in Outbreak, we learned more about a character called Zykov.
Here we go.
Who was actually the poor Red Army soldier who went into the cyclotron back in World War II to seal it up.
There
and
you go.
He's been trapped in the Dark Ether for a very long time, and he wants to get out.
So think about it, right? Maxis was in the Dark Ether for what felt like months to her, and in our time, in the real world, she was just in there for like a couple days or something like that, right? I think, like, roughly. If Zykov's been in the Dark Ether in our time since World War II, or the end of World War II, and we're now 30 years on in the 80s, then that's an awfully long time in the Dark Ether, because it's stretched out in the Dark Ether, right? So that's going to be so long in there, and yet he's somehow managed to survive and evade the Forsaken. Isn't that curious?
Now aware of Omega's plans for the Forsaken, Requiem need all the allies they can get.
Zykov. He may be the only one who truly knows the Forsaken.
Are we suggesting we somehow break this lost Russian out of the Dark Ether?
Poor bastard's been in there longer than anyone.
He promises them that if they can release him from his prison, he might be the deciding factor in overcoming both the Forsaken and Omega.
Doesn't that sound a bit too convenient, though? Doesn't that sound a bit too convenient? The fact that there's this Russian who's been lost in there for so long and somehow he survived, and now somehow he's in touch with both Omega and Requiem, by the way, though they haven't said that here too clearly, and he's offering each team, like, oh yeah, if you get me out first, I'll work with you guys to defeat the Forsaken. Like, I'll work with you, but you have to get me out as soon as possible, right? Kind of sounds like the sort of thing that the Forsaken might say.
As we move into the climax of Season 6, we're going to finally focus on Omega Group's final operation, Operacja Izbavitel. This map takes place in a facsimile of an American town.
Wow.
Something that the Soviets and Omega Group have been using for many years for training purposes. This location is unique because Omega Group have identified this as the specific place where the veil between our world and that of the Dark Ether is at its thinnest.
Just to really quickly interrupt Craig here, there's a shot here that I want to quickly mention. Basically, this one here, right? On Instagram, they put out an image of this room, and this text was not there. It was really weird. I don't know if this is like, you have to be in a certain, like maybe a certain character can see this, or like maybe it was just that they hadn't actually built it into the map at that point when they took the screenshot, but it was weird because it was the identical shot to in the trailer, just with the text gone. It was really, really, maybe blood. They were worried about blood on Instagram. I don't know, but it was very strange. Oops. Oh man, what have I done?
Forsaken.
There we go.
Well, this final round-based zombies map represents the climax of the Black Ops Cold War zombie story.
Right.
It's not the end of the Dark Ether story. Eagle-eyed or eagle-eared players might have noticed that we've been sowing the seeds of some other things that also harken back to World War II.
So that makes it sound like it is the Dark Ether story continuing, because that's something I've been talking about in my videos recently. It's not the Ether story, despite the fact that it's earlier. Interesting.
The Dark Ether story will continue and expand in Call of Duty Vanguard.
Okay. Well, that's that cleared up, I suppose. All right. Cursed Transit. Yo, yeah. That's crazy, dude. Yo, cut.
Shout out to my boy. You do not understand the trouble I have gone through to get here. That's 20 hours, dog. That's 20 hours of my shit life.
Jeez. And on that note, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you understand the story now that you've seen Cursed Transit, and I'll see you in the next one. I'll be doing a full recap once the map's out and stuff as well, so don't worry. If you want a full story of Cold War Zombies, it's on the way. Stay tuned.